What is going on, you beautiful people? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, everything in between. And the new year is coming up upon us. I haven't realized what day it is like all weekend. I've been very confused. I thought today was Monday and yesterday it was Tuesday. And yeah, it's that weird, awkward time right in between of the Christmas, New Year kind of aspect of things. Unfortunately, I do have to go back to work tomorrow. But despite that, we're going to do a fun little live today. So I'm going to kind of talk about a few different things. Well, we're going to kind of go over the whole new year, new you, how to actually set some habits and break down kind of the traditional resolutions, why they don't work, all that good stuff. And then we're going to kind of chat, do a Q&A, take all the questions, and I will hopefully have most of the answers. And yeah, we'll kind of plug along and go from there. And what's going on, everybody? We got Ted's girl from the UK. How are you doing? It must almost be like, what is the UK? Like 8 hours ahead, maybe not 7, something like that. So must be quite late there. And then we got Mimi and Oz, Monday morning from Australia. Yeah, you guys are a whole day ahead, eh? It's too funny. All right, let me bring up my presentation here and we will have a quick little chat and see, yeah, some of the things that you need to know. And what I really wanted to focus on with this presentation was the habits, because it's something that people often talk about, but don't really have a strong understanding of what exactly a habit is, what's kind of some of the underlying components. And, it's easy enough to say, I'll change a habit, but how do you actually go about doing it? So without further ado, let's dive in. So today we're going to kind of dive into why the traditional resolutions don't work, how to actually create some habits that stick, and really hopefully set you up for some good success come 2025. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you can really get a better understanding of where you want to go, who you want to be, what's going to be working for you as you progress into the new year here. And yeah, kind of get a new perspective on what habit formation and changes actually are and what that's going to mean for you, not only today, but for the rest of your life, hopefully. So why do the resolutions fail? Well, 80% of people, we know that by February will have given up or are not continuing to follow up with their New Year's resolutions. And a lot of times it's one, because people try and change too many things. So deciding to overhaul your entire life, ultimately that's a bit too overwhelming and leads to a breakdown in you being able to make the necessary tweaks and changes and sustain them. Many people focus too much on the outcomes versus the actual process of how you're going to get there. So you may want to get skinnier and leaner and all that kind of stuff, but how do you actually go? What are the steps you need to do to get there at the end of the day? And then the final thing is that it's not really specific. It's often a perfectionistic type aspect where it's like, I need to go to the gym every day. I need to do this perfectly. If I don't, then that's it. I have failed. And ultimately, life comes up. We're not perfect. And we end up beating ourselves up and falling down the rabbit hole of not continuing to progress. So instead of saying something like, I want to lose weight, we need to look at, who do I want to become? What is the identity that I want to create for myself? Do you want to become a healthy person? Do you want to become a strong person, someone who prioritizes their well-being? And then you need to look at, well, what are the behaviors that kind of person would engage in? So for example, I want to be a healthy person. Well, thinking about what a healthy person might do, they're probably eating more vegetables. They maybe pack a lunch every day. They're trying to prepare more meals at home, that sort of thing. Or I want to become a runner, someone who is a runner probably has like a plan or, kind of a scheduled time, or has kind of a breakdown of what exactly they're trying to do with their running plan, whether it's just to increase their fitness or to reduce their time per kilometer per mile. There's a whole laundry list of different things that could be considered and looked at for somebody who's trying to become a runner. So we want to figure out what is the identity we want to strive for. We want to get away from the outcomes themselves, because if we say, well, I want to lose weight, lots of people want to lose weight. But how each person goes about doing that, and ultimately the identity that they embody, is going to be whether one person does it successfully versus another person. As well, this becomes even more vitally important when we start to look at the weight maintenance aspect of things. And that's because when it comes to that weight maintenance, well, if we were kind of just make some changes for a certain period of time, and ultimately at the end of it, you just go back to your old previous patterns, well, yeah, you're going to ultimately gain weight and put the weight back on and ultimately fall back into those old patterns, because you haven't changed the foundation of who you want to be and who you're trying to become. Sweet. Now, I want to talk about this battle of the battle that's inside all of us, kind of the old you versus the new you. So it's going to feel like this internal struggle. And, probably the first week of January, everybody's going to be super motivated, ready to make some changes. So it becomes very, very easy to suppress the old self, the one that maybe, ignored or hit the snooze button, didn't go for the walk after work, and so on. However, as the time drags on, whether it's the first week, second week, what have you, and maybe you start to get a little bit tired, or the progress that you are making is no longer, as quick or happening as quickly, and so things start to slow down. And suddenly you might find yourself kind of, wanting to go back to those old patterns and behaviors, hitting that snooze button again, skipping the afternoon workouts, not making your lunch and preparing it the night before. And all of these things might initially seem quite strange because, just yesterday I had no problems. I did all the things, but today something's different. I feel off. And what that change that has occurred is it's your old you wanting to take back control. The old you that is the you that you've been a part of and been following all along, the one that knows what are the things that make you comfortable, what are the things that are maybe pleasurable in the short term but not the greatest for the long term. It's going to get you to go back to where you were previously. Now, a lot of people at this point in time would then try to double down, work even harder, and ultimately try to be more perfect. But that's not going to be the trick that's going to help you to maintain your changes long term. Because what we really need to do is we need to recognize that the old you is still there and always will be, and that there is going to be times in your life where you're going to go back to those old patterns and behaviors. Whether a life stressor comes up, whether the right circumstances happen, ultimately the old you will always be there. So the goal isn't to beat ourselves up and beat down that old you, or to try and get the new you to be perfect all the time. The goal is to create sustainable habits and changes that make it easier for the new you, the identity you're trying to create, to show up more often. So, where's my button? There it is. The next thing we want to do is that when it comes to that new you, we want to show up or aim for showing up about 80% of the time. If you can do 80% consistency, which is like 5.5 out of 7 days or 24 out of 30 days in a month, you're going to be golden. At 80% consistency, you're going to see regular and consistent changes. And heck, even at 60% consistency, you're going to see changes. They're just going to be slower, right? In reality, it doesn't matter what you decide to change. If you aren't going to be consistent with it or can't be consistent with it, you're not going to go anywhere. And so as we start to look at the specific changes, it's vital that you start thinking about them in the terms of what's something that I can actually change, even if a life stressor comes up. And even when, you know, life just happens, or you're less tired, don't sleep as well, that sort of thing? And what is something that you can sustain for the long term? We want to move away from perfection, looking at any progress and realizing some weeks are going to be better than others, but progress is progress. All right, the 80-20 rule. Now, a lot of people, as I said, will overhaul their entire life. They will jump on the newest and fanciest diet, and they will believe that they need to hold to that as perfectly as possible. But instead, the better approach is going to be looking at what is the thing, the 20% of changes that's going to give you 80% of your result. So, for example, instead of embarking on a diet overhaul and trying to follow it to a T, I want you to look at the weak spots that are in your current dietary patterns. So, things like, are you skipping lunch and then overeating at dinner or after dinner? Are you, not getting in that afternoon walk because you're too tired? What are the things that are currently, or areas that you're kind of having a misstep, if you will? And how can we go about changing just something in there, something that's going to give us a really big impact on the grand scheme of it? And so, looking at the lunch example, if we brought a lunch from home, that would probably reduce the amount of hunger and overeating that you do at night, and probably give you a great deal of benefit in moving you in the direction you want to go, versus getting caught up as to whether you ate, you know, 1,800 or 1,700 calories or got 30 grams of carbs versus 50 grams of carbs. Those are all minute, minuscule details that at the end of the day, they're just taking up brain capacity and space, and they just don't matter because they're not actually going to move the needle forward. Whereas if we focus on that one bigger thing that's going to give you a much, much bigger result, that is going to be what wins the day for us. So thinking about that from the 80-20 perspective. Now, what about exercise? Because I know a lot of people will jump and say, well, exercise is going to be my golden ticket. I just need to do more of it. If I can just get to the gym consistently, then all of my weight loss woes will be over and the world will be a better place. But unfortunately, exercise is terrible for weight loss. I've said this a lot before, but when it comes to the exercise piece of things, in order to actually get enough exercise in to lose weight, you need to do a lot of exercise, like hours of cardio, and like consistently doing it day after day after day in order to get you into a calorie deficit and to help you lose weight. One, most people don't have that kind of time. And two, it's going to get pretty tiring pretty quickly. The next thing that ultimately happens is that when you do exercise, your body will compensate to make up for those lost calories. It's going to increase your appetite and hunger. It's going to make you lazier, so you're more inclined to take the elevator instead of the stairs. And it's also going to reduce your metabolic rate. All of these things are done in order to preserve and prevent you from losing more fat and energy, because it doesn't want you to. It wants you to keep that weight on, because that's ultimately why it's collected it on you over all this time. So exercise should be something you definitely engage in, and we all need to get more of it in, but we should be doing it for health, well-being, and to become stronger. Okay. It'll definitely help you, like all of those things overall are going to help you to move in the direction you want to go. But we need to focus on it for the other aspects and perspective versus trying to lose weight and then get the progress and the benefit when we look at it more indirectly. So, I am building habits and whatever. Building habits is like sledding. Now, the fun analogy I have around this is that I want you to think about your habits kind of like sledding down a snowy hill. So your current habits are the well-worn paths that are on the hill. They're easy to follow. Your sled pretty much just goes around the corners and all that kind of stuff without much effort. But when we're trying to build a new habit, it's like we're needing to carve a fresh path. And so nothing is currently there. We have to take our sled, we have to steer it, create the path, and ultimately repeat going down that path over and over and over again until it eventually gets to be more well worn and it gets easier to go down. You don't have to think about it as much. But unfortunately, when it comes to that old habit and that old path, it doesn't just disappear once the new path is ready to go. It might fade, might get some snow on it, might break down and not be as present, if you will. Um, but it's still going to be there. And if you happen to run into the right circumstances again, such as life, breaking your routine, whatever it might be, it's going to be pretty easy for you to accidentally turn and start heading down that old path again. And ultimately, heading down that old path causes you to fall back on those old patterns. So, when you're creating your new habits, your changes, and that sort of thing, you want to be thinking about this in that the old habit can always come about, can always occur. The important thing is not so much to just be trying to get rid of it altogether, but it's just being aware of it, that it could occur if the right circumstances come up. And ultimately, we want to try and go down that new path as consistently as possible, but you're not going to be perfect. All right. How do we go about and actually, well, set up and change our habits? So I've got kind of 5 steps that I usually recommend for people. The biggest and the most important one is setting your intention. You need to decide what it is you're going to achieve. So you've already got your identity. What do you want to become? You've thought about what are the behaviors and things that that individual with that identity might do. And so we want to look at, okay, what is it that we want to do? What is the activity, the behavior, and that sort of thing. So, for example, setting your intention might be, I want to increase my daily activity. Cool. The second thing we need to do is we need to set a specific goal. So make it very clear, like I'll walk for 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday after dinner. You've made it very clear. You've kind of pointed out that's the day that it's going to happen and so on. And then you want to plan and commit. This is a big area that people don't do very well. It's always kind of like, oh, well, I'll do it later. Or, yeah, Wednesday, sometime on Wednesday, I'll go and do this. But just like you plan to show up for this live, you need to plan when you're going to engage in the behavior that you're wanting to engage in. So you want to use a reminder, put it in your schedule, set an alarm, whatever it is. You're essentially making an appointment with yourself to uphold that and go to it in order to get the benefit of it. The next thing we want to do is we want to reflect every single week. So at the end of the week, we want to review our progress, celebrate the wins, and then start troubleshooting where did we go wrong. And it's not, oh, I'm the problem. I wasn't perfect enough and what have you. It's looking at the system and process of, say, I wanted to go for a walk Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I went Monday and Friday, but I didn't Wednesday. So what happened? Where did we break down? Was it that Wednesday just wasn't a good day? So maybe now we need to go to Thursday or Tuesday, or maybe we do it on the weekend, or whatever the case may be. Looking at the process that's not working for you and ultimately making a tweak there so that you can strive to the goal that you want to get. Okay. Now, can the medications like Wegovy help? Absolutely. Many of you may be on it, you might not be on it. It all kind of depends, obviously, on you and you work with your healthcare team. And if you are going to use one of these medications, the best way to kind of think about them is that they're a tool to help you along on this journey. They're going to make it easier to engage with the habits and the identity that you're working to become. And how they help is kind of regulating hunger, managing cravings, and just making it easier to kind of get through some of those barriers so that you can make the sustainable changes and be able to more consistently engage with them and work towards what you want to do. But ultimately, the habits and the identity piece are going to be the foundation. Medications can give us a bit of a boost, but the real work is going to be in the day-to-day changes that you implement in your life to allow you to keep moving forward. All right. So that's kind of the breakdown. Your next step is to come and join me at Dr. Dan's Empowerment Hub. So this is a new hub and community group that I have created. And what we do in this hub is kind of focus on building habits. It's sharing wins, supporting each other. Every 2 weeks, we're doing a weekly check-in to kind of chat, discuss, see how things are going, what tweaks and changes do you need to make, where do you need support, all of that wonderful stuff. So you definitely want to go and do that. All the links and everything like that are all down below. And you can get free access to the Empowerment Hub until January 6th. And then it does move over to a paid membership. And so, yeah, now I want to know, what's one habit that you're committing to this year? What's the change? What's the identity? Who do you want to become? What do you want to become? Drop it in the comments, and let's talk about it a little bit. So, new year, new you, start today. And thank you to everybody for the ongoing support and continuing to, engage with my content. The wonderful comments and messages that I get are awesome and fantastic, and it's been an incredible ride this past year. I'm very excited to see what 2025 happens. But yeah, and if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe, hit the like button, and check out all my links below. But here's to a healthier and happier you in 2025. So yeah, so that's the presentation, everybody. How do I get this off? Beauty. So we'll kind of take the comments, the questions, all the things, and check in to see how things are going. And yeah, see how you guys are doing. Oh, geez, Ted's Girl UK. It's 2,300 hours, so 11 p.m. at night. Mia Elrod, hello, hello. Ernie 193, hey Dr. Dan, is Mounjaro available in Canada? Yeah, it's been available in Canada for quite some time now. Yeah, you definitely can access it for sure. And Ted's Girl UK says, I'm starting Mounjaro beginning January. That is awesome. Mia's got a question here. Dr. Dan, what's the best things I can do since I had ankle surgery Friday, but I'm on a lifestyle journey or lifestyle changing journey with Zepbound? I've lost 63 pounds, but need to lose 198 pounds more. I don't want to gain weight, but need to be non-weight bearing for the next month or so. So when it comes to kind of, surgery or things like this that may have reduced your mobility, I mean, really, it's kind of taking some time to track what exactly it is that you're eating, what you're consuming, get an idea of your calorie intake and that sort of thing. And yeah, kind of recalculate what your daily energy expenditure would be since you aren't as active at present. What does that look like? What are the things that you might need to change? Where are the gaps or the areas that you're struggling with? And then as soon as you can, start becoming as active as you possibly can, obviously slowly and at the recommendation of your various clinicians and stuff. But incorporate that activity slowly but surely so that you can kind of move in the direction that you're kind of still progressing on. And also be patient, recognize that there might not be as much movement and things might be kind of slow and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, keep that in mind. And then another thing that I just kind of want to address here, because this kind of has come up, or it comes up all the time, where people say, I've lost X amount and I need to lose 198 pounds more. And so when it comes to, I need to lose this additional amount or hit some kind of goalpost, and then, apparently magic and wishes and fairies will come down from above and the world will be a better place. One of the issues with this is oftentimes getting that 198 pounds is going to be based on getting you to a normal BMI. Now, we know from the BMI, it's not an effective measure to tell me how you're doing from a health perspective. As well, when we're looking at a weight amount or losing that weight amount, there's no guarantees that you're going to get to that. Or if you could, the sacrifices and changes that you would have to make to reach that weight level are not going to be sustainable in any form or fashion. So I never put like a weight target that I help people to get to. It's always kind of like, okay, let's see where we get to and work on some changes. If you plateau out and your weight's not going down anymore, we need to look at the process and system that we have going on. Is there some other tweaks and changes that we can make and implement? Maybe, but also maybe not. Maybe the changes wouldn't be sustainable. Maybe it wouldn't be effective for you kind of ongoing and stuff like that. So We need to keep those aspects and things in mind as well. A lot of people keep grinding away on trying to lose weight, like for months and months and even years on end, when in reality they've lost a bunch of weight, and the best thing that they can start doing is like hitting the gym and yeah, starting to lifting some weights to actually building some muscle, because that's going to be probably one of the bigger game changers that's going to help with maintaining weight loss, but also or losing further weight and stuff. So um yeah, kind of thoughts around that. Ted's Girl UK. Tomorrow I'll be contacting your site to book a consultation with you. Need some information from you as I'm a bit anxious. Absolutely. Happy to chat. Yeah, all the links will actually be down below as well in the description if you want to go and check it out. But yeah, happy to chat, happy to support where I can. Abigail, doctor will only prescribe Saxenda. He's wary of the new GLP-1s. What can I do to make this most effective? So Saxenda is still a good drug. Yes, it's not as potent as Wegovy and Mounjaro and that sort of thing, but when it comes to kind of the addition of um, the drugs and that sort of thing, again, you still need to look at the habits and tweaks and changes. A lot of times people will get a little bit too reliant on the drug, and the drug just is supposed to just put up this barrier and just make it impossible for them to eat more and that sort of thing. And while the drugs definitely do help, we still got to do all of the other things to make these drugs effective. So, my general recommendations are well, the five things. Number one is protein, more protein. All of us could eat more protein. Guarantee you, people are not eating enough protein. Even if you think you're eating a lot of protein, you're not eating a lot of protein. Next thing is trying to eat consistently over the course of the day. And so the reason for that is to get that protein in. If you're not eating consistently, protein protein is going to be hard to hit because it fills us up more quickly. But we also need to get that protein going in order to help you maintain that muscle mass and keep the protein synthesis going. The third thing is going to be eating enough calories. So if you're doing like a super strict low calorie diet, I guarantee you things are not going to be going well. Eventually, you're going to get that rebound effect. You're going to overeat, overconsume, and again, won't be won't be sustainable long term. And the final thing, or the fourth thing, is fiber. We can all get more fruits and veggies. Fiber is super important for multiple reasons, but also helps to keep us fuller for longer and all of those good things. And the final thing is going to be probably mental health and sleep. Kind of the two tend to go hand in hand in some respects. But if you're not getting adequate sleep or your sleep is not of good quality, yeah, there's going to be not the greatest time, leading to, again, your appetite, physiology, and that sort of thing, wanting to push you more towards those higher calorie, higher sugary treats and stuff. And yeah, kind of affecting your overall progress. But hopefully that gives you some perspective and that sort of thing. And yeah, yeah, I mean, I wish you the best of luck. And Saxenda is still a very good drug for sure. Mimi and Oz. My BMI has dropped from 36 to 24, and I'm now in maintenance. Any tips for avoiding weight regain? So pretty much the five things that I just listed off. And then the next biggest thing that I would add on, particularly for weight maintenance, is hitting the gym and doing as much resistance training as you possibly can. The more muscle that you can build, the better off you're going to be to maintain the weight, because your metabolic rate's going to increase. So just how much you burn by physically existing is going to go up. Very, very important. And so, yeah, so kind of getting into the gym, building on that aspect, building in a regular routine that works for you, so that you can maintain the weight and keep up with the activity long term and stuff like that. So that'd be kind of my biggest things. As well, you probably want to look at your calorie intake and work your way up to your maintenance level of calories. That's going to help to take your body out of some of the metabolic adaptations and again increase your metabolic rate, allowing you to maintain the weight more easily. Uh, Mel Bethel, happy holidays all. Happy holidays, Mel. Lovely one. I had a patient once, I'm an OT, whose son put her on a high protein diet. She was 85, non-ambulatory. She lost 30 pounds in 4 months, no exercise. So with Zepbound, you are okay. Sweet. Kimberly, I'm seeing folks wait to see lose weight before strengthening. Does that seem effective to you, or is that an old way of thinking? So I guess it depends on, there's a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. If people have like mobility issues and challenges where going to the gym and lifting weights is kind of a non-starter for them right out the gate, then yeah, that's reasonable to kind of get some of the weight off, increase mobility, and that sort of thing. But in general, I don't recommend waiting to start losing weight. If you're able to go to the gym and be working out, you should definitely start as soon as you can or be doing something at home. I know there's also like the stigma and bias and that sort of thing. But if it's like you're wanting to go to the gym and work out to lose weight, but you're waiting to lose weight to go to the gym, well, we've kind of got a little bit backwards there. Um, and so we want you to be working out, building and maintaining what muscle mass you have, because that's going to set you up in a much, much better spot for you to maintain that weight long term. So, yeah, I don't generally recommend it unless there's like an extenuating circumstance or what have you. And yeah, kind of working your way towards it, whether it's going to a gym, but if that's too much of a, you're too worried about kind of the bias and stigma, and which is 100% valid, then starting at home and chair exercises or whatever you can do at home that can help you along that way. So good question. Sonia, I'm on Ozempic since beginning of September, but just lose 4 pounds, bit discouraged. So fundamentally, I mean, there's a lot of things to kind of look at and consider, but if you're not losing weight on one of the medications, I've done a video on kind of the three types of people or three kind of groupings of people. There's some people who don't have any kind of response whatsoever. They can be kind of the people that don't get any appetite reduction, don't notice anything from the medication perspective and what have you. There's a group of people who just expect the medication to, again, do all the work for them and aren't making any changes and that sort of thing. In which case, yeah, they're likely going to lose less weight unless they're just like a hyper responder and their diet goes from very, very high calories to very low calories. And then there's some people who it's kind of a, there's a long, long history of dieting. They're maybe not truly in a calorie deficit. They're not tracking their calories, their protein, and that sort of thing. And so you really kind of need to look at what is the overall patterns and lifestyle that you're currently doing and engaging in. If you haven't been tracking your calories, might be a good opportunity to start doing that, particularly your protein intake, and looking at kind of tweaking and changing some things. As well, looking at your consistency. If you're consistent 4 out of 7 days, cool. You're much less than 80%. You're still going to progress, but it's going to be ultra slow progression. And so if you're not getting that 5.5, 6 out of 7 days where you're consistent with the patterns and changes, that's where we're going to see more and quicker changes and tweaks. And so you got to work your way up there to that. All of that is kept in mind that some of the changes you might be able to make, some of them not, all kind of depends. But yeah, kind of looking at some of the components and aspects from that perspective. So lovely one, Mia Rudd, not recommending particular diet, just saying that she did it without any exercise, but her son was obviously able to control her diet 100%. Definitely. Wouldn't that be nice if we were all just mice and lived in a cage and someone would just feed us exactly what we need and we would apparently eat just as much as, or what have you, that sort. So many moms, I'm new to Mounjaro. What happens at the end of 4 weeks with 2.5? Does the drug become ineffective for suppression? I do not quite understand what drives the increase to 5, then 7.5, etc. So for most people, like the reason why we start this drug at a low dose and increase it over time is to get people to be able to tolerate the side effects. If you were to start immediately on 15 milligrams of Mounjaro or 2.4 milligrams of Wegovy, you probably would be in the hospital because you would be vomiting violently, your stomach would be cramping, and so on. Um, so that's really why we started a low dose and work our way up. And then it's about finding the dose that works for you. Some people it's 2.5, not too many. I find most people 5 milligrams is the magical dose for them. Other people, we need to crank them all the way up to 15 milligrams to get their full maximal response. So it really varies person to person, and yeah, kind of depends on you, your situation, and that sort of thing, that are ultimately going to dictate what dose you get to and stuff like that. But good question. Um, Mimi, I hurt my back in February and was in a brace for 6 weeks. I searched YouTube for chair yoga and did some upper body exercises with light weights instead. Awesome. Yeah, kind of a great transition. And yeah, that's definitely going to be a tough situation. But good on you there, Mimi, for kind of making that tweak and change and moving that direction. Um, Jean says, for me, the biggest thing I noticed on Wegovy, now the maintenance dose, is that I do not crave the sugars, carbs, and it's so weird after my whole life of being a carby. Um, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the mechanism by which the medications work. Not so much with carbs, but just with reducing your drive for high calorie foods, which tend to have more carbs, but also fat, salt, sugar, all that kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, it can be very much a life changing experience and thing of such for people because yeah, you've experienced a hyperactive appetite system all of your life, and now the medication is helping to correct it. So yeah, that's awesome. Ted's Girl UK, time for bed. Nice to join you all. Awesome. Have a good sleep there, Ted's Girl. What I wanted to do is go and find my comment section and answer a few of the comments there because I know I had a few and there were some fun ones and some good ones. And yeah, we'll kind of chat about some of the things people put in. Let's see. I haven't responded with that. So Fourth Way Ranch. So we kind of had a bit of a conversation. They said that the truth is these medications don't work at all. Everyone gains the weight back and more, plus lose a lot of muscle. And their response was the trials don't quantify and equally apply diet and exercise to both placebo and the drug groups. There's little evidence it does anything. That's just like blatantly incorrect. Yeah, they definitely do exactly that. Like the standard protocol for the step trial, the surmount trials. Yeah, they balance. They put in the lifestyle measure first of usually 500 calorie deficit, increasing your activity, and then they add one group gets the drug, one group gets the placebo, and they go for like I think the tirzepatide trials were like 68 weeks or something. So yeah, they do that. I always find comments like that very funny where they talk about the evidence, but yet haven't actually looked at and reviewed the evidence themselves. Um, yeah, fascinating. Bum, bum, bum. So someone said, "Hiya, do I have to wait a month before switching from Ozempic to Mounjaro? I just finished my 1 ml Ozempic after 2 months, and it did not work for me, so I want to change it to Mounjaro." So in general, when you're switching between the medications, you don't need to um, make any kind of like wait any period of time. Basically, you can whatever Ozempic dose or Wegovy dose you were on, The next week when you were due for your next dose, you can then just switch over to the other drug and continue on your way. Nothing wrong with that, that's for sure. So the only thing that would be the biggest thing is what dose you were on. So if you were on, 2.4 of Wegovy, I wouldn't switch you to 15 milligrams of Mounjaro. I probably would put somebody on 10 milligrams, make sure that they tolerate it just because Mounjaro is more potent, and then work them up to the 15 if they needed it. But yeah, that would be kind of the only real measure there. And yeah, you can kind of continue on and continue progressing. So, um, hey moms, I'm finding 2.5 really good. It's month one. I just didn't understand why the pharmacy is pushing for 5 milligrams. I'm in the UK, um, and I have to go private, and it's not under the NHS. Yeah. So if you're doing really well on 2.5, it's awesome. You can continue on the 2.5. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's kind of, again, finding the right dose that works for you. Some people it's a lower dose, some people it's a higher dose. It really varies person to person. Um, and yeah, Mounjaro isn't covered by the NHS. I think is Wegovy covered by the NHS now? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is. Mounjaro, I know, has had some problems with like the public coverage system, including here in Canada. So if that's going to change or not is really, really tough to say, but maybe, maybe not. Yeah, we can have to see. So awesome. And when it comes to Kargisema, combine with a muscle builder because many people have muscle loss. So I always find when it comes to the muscle mass aspect of things, I think there's a big thing with it being overhyped and saying, oh, you're going to lose all this muscle mass. I mean, yeah, if you're not exercising and not consuming any protein, for sure you're going to lose muscle mass. But a lot of people don't realize that anybody that goes on any kind of weight loss journey is going to lose muscle. That is just the reality of it. You want to limit how much muscle you lose, but your body is going to use both your fat storage and your muscle storage. Usually we want to aim for, kind of a 25 to 75% ratio. So for every pound or kilo you lose, you want to be no more than 25% coming from muscle and 75% at least coming from the fat. If you can get more fat versus muscle, that's awesome. Eating more protein, lifting weights, that all can help you to get to that point in that aspect of it. But yeah, the muscle mass loss that we see is still proportional to the amount of muscle or the amount of weight that somebody loses. And the other big thing is that people who have obesity have more muscle mass on average. And so when they lose weight and we like rescan them and stuff, they have amount of muscle that is proportionate to what they should at their new lower weight. So the whole muscle mass aspect, it's something we need to be mindful of. And if you're like, 85, little old bitty granny kind of thing, yeah, I probably don't want to put you on one of these medications. Or I had a patient right now who had low bone density. So they weren't osteoporosis, but they were like osteopenic. So they had low bone density. And one of these medications would not be ideal, at least right now, for this patient until we looked at optimizing their dietary patterns, getting more protein, getting them lifting weights, and that sort of thing. That's going to be kind of the best course of action for them right now because we would strip away more muscle mass, which would then affect more bone loss and that sort of thing. So we'd want to really optimize their overall patterns, try and build some muscle, and then we can look at kind of losing weight with one of the medications potentially. So yeah, it's kind of taking all those things into account and what the individual in front of us is dealing with. So Mia, I'm on 5 milligrams of Zepbound. It's been a while, but I had to be off for 2 weeks for my surgery. And I actually lost a few pounds after the new habits I've started instead of gain without using Zepbound. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is that if you can implement and start making changes, that can help you to kind of keep progressing and moving forward. I mean, at 2 weeks off, you still had a bit of the drug kind of hanging out in your system. So it takes about 5 weeks for it to fully clear. So there's probably still some component there, but nonetheless, you were keeping up with your habits and continuing to progress, which is fantastic. Excuse me. And Vicky, hi, Dr. Dan. Hi, Vicky. How are you? Hopes everybody's still having a wonderful night. Let's see. Is Mounjaro now covered by insurance for weight loss? So Mounjaro is not covered by insurance for weight loss. Mounjaro is only going to be covered for people who have type 2 diabetes. Zepbound, which is Mounjaro, both contain the tirzepatide. It's also going to take, that one will hopefully, for private coverage, at least for some people in the States where it's available, should have some coverage for it under their insurance. Here in Canada, Zepbound hasn't been quite approved yet. I think we're waiting probably early spring of 2025. It should get approval and then becomes the waiting game for whether we're going to get coverage for it and that sort of thing. So tough to say, but Mounjaro is not covered for weight loss at all right now. Interesting. Merry Christmas. Oh, lots of awesome comments. I love it. Stoked. Happy holidays to you too. Please learn to pronounce the name tirzepatide correctly before you start giving out medical advice. I always love comments like that. Like, it's always such a, well, it's someone like trying to get a dig in that because you didn't pronounce a word correctly, that automatically discredits you and all of your knowledge. But I don't know about you guys, but I have all of the different drug names and stuff like that that are out there. Some of them are like impossible to pronounce. And yeah, it's just kind of like, of course, you're going to pronounce things wrong in some cases, but that doesn't discredit or make you not knowledgeable in something that you're kind of working on. But clearly, there's a few people out there that get very annoyed by it, and I would much rather not pronounce it correctly if it annoys them, because that's just much more fun. So someone asked, if I want to recalculate my calorie count on my TDEE calculator, it won't let me. Is there a way to do that? So if you're looking to recalculate your total daily energy expenditure via my calculator, you should be able to like go back into the website and kind of like refresh the page. You might have to clear your cookies or your cache or whatever like that. Clear that from your history, and that should allow you to open it up, and then you can get your new calorie count and that sort of thing. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, it should be a pretty easy switch in that regard of things, and shouldn't be an ongoing problem. But who knows? If someone else has that problem, let me know. Tuan, how are you doing tonight? Hello, Dr. Dan in chat. Awesome. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Mimi says, in Australia, we don't have Zepbound, but Mounjaro is now approved for both weight loss and diabetes. Hot damn, look at that. I would have never thought Australia would move forward with that. But here we are. That's awesome. Very, very fantastic. But yeah, they got the approval for it, because Mounjaro technically is only indicated for diabetes, but if it's now being approved for weight loss, that's awesome. Kimberly is asking whether to count collagen in your daily protein intake. A 2019 study that said it's okay to count up to 15 grams because we get the missing amino acids in other foods like meat. What do you think, Doc? I mean, it certainly could be included. I guess it depends on how much you're having, the quality of it, and all that sort of stuff. You could probably include it as anywhere from 5 to 15 grams. as certainly kind of being a amount to add to your total protein intake. But the other thing to keep in mind is like, are you taking it every single day and all of those sorts of things? Overall, I would kind of take it as like, hey, you're getting a little bit extra protein, this X amount, which is awesome, fantastic. And then just kind of keeping it off to the side as you count the rest of your protein intake for all of your other sources and stuff like that. But really would be splitting hairs either way. So Vicky says, I'm watching from the UK. Hello, hello. Just started with Mounjaro recently, but I also want to combine with IF. However, I'm type 2 diabetes. Is it safe to combine intermittent fasting with my Mounjaro? I mean, you certainly can. Yeah, like when it comes to combining it with intermittent fasting, like it's always a concern with diabetes. It depends if you have a type 1 diabetes or if you're insulin dependent. Intermittent fasting is definitely not recommended because you can kind of get a negative component and aspect of things in terms of causing hypos and that sort. Yeah, so my big questions would always kind of be like, why intermittent fasting? Why do we want to go that route? What do you feel or think it's going to be doing? It really will kind of depend. Yeah, kind of on those aspects and components of things, as well as your other health markers. Again, I don't usually recommend intermittent fasting, largely because people do intermittent fasting incorrectly. They fast breakfast and lunch and then eat later in the day, when in reality, we should be eating more. We should start eating earlier in the day once we wake up because your body is better capable of handling the sugar, fats, and that sort of thing versus the end of the day will have a greater amount of insulin resistance and not able to process sugars and that sort of thing as well. As well with intermittent fasting, I generally see it in the case of either people not able to sustain it or it leading to binging during the feeding window. And a lot of people are unable to get their protein intake in during the feeding window. And in some cases can also lead to loss of muscle. So yeah, you certainly could. It would depend on a couple of factors. But yeah, I usually don't recommend it. So hope that kind of answered, possibly not. Tuan says, I had a wonderful Christmas. I'm down 104 pounds, switched to Zepbound 4 weeks ago. Wow. Okay. So you're doing fantastic. So great to hear. Keep it up. That is awesome. Mimi says, we also have Saxenda and Wegovy for weight loss and Ozempic for diabetes. But this is only since they banned all compounded GLP-1s in Australia. Awesome. Yeah, now that the shortages are resolved, you're going to see, well, you're going to see people still compounding, or they're going to switch to real shady stuff and like compounding unapproved retatrutide from research chemicals and that sort of thing. Or I guess I know of places that are currently doing that, which is terrifying all in itself. But yeah, we're going to kind of see a ban across the board and a lot of lawsuits and suing people and that sort of thing. So, yeah. So Corey says, are there studies being done on long-term health effects related to Zepbound? Thanks for answering questions. Yes. I cannot remember what it's called. I think it's the Surmount CV, cardiovascular or something like that. So that's going to be kind of one of the longest standing studies with Zepbound in particular, looking at the cardiovascular benefits of it. It's going to be similar to the select trial with Wegovy, where it was like 4 years. They looked at the cardiovascular benefit in people that have obesity and don't have diabetes. And so that is currently what is underway with Zepbound at present, to show if Zepbound provides a cardiovascular benefit. Very likely it will. And we'll get a lot more data in terms of the long-term safety aspects of it and tell us kind of, yeah, confirming kind of what we already know with the GLP-1s is that they're very safe, they're very effective. We have 20 plus years of experience with various GLP-1s up to this point in time. And yeah, we haven't had any red flags coming out. So very promising in that sense. But yeah, as soon as that trial comes out, I will definitely make a video around it. Vicky says, thank you for the clarification. My pleasure, Vicky. Let me just bounce into here and do a couple more questions. I have someone that says, I refuse to change my diet and refuse to add exercise to my daily routine. I'm about 35 pounds over. I need something easy. I mean, kudos to you, buddy. Unfortunately, that's not really how the world works in some ways. As much as it would be nice that it was easy and that sort of thing, it's unfortunate that we still have to make some tweaks and changes along the way in order to get the maximal health benefits. The drugs are just a tool to kind of help you out along that path. But happy holidays, I suppose. Da-da. Beautiful, love it. So someone said, my appetite is always still on for a long time, even after I eat. A retired teacher told me that satiety was only mental and that I had to change my mental attitude, and gave an example of how her mother would only have would only give her a carrot if she was hungry when she was young. Jesus. Her advice did not help and seemed like she just wanted to treat my problem as an issue of a lack of discipline and strictness. Welcome to the club. It is always a constant resisting of an appetite that I know should be off and not something that should stay on, for you to train your willpower. Are the GLP-1 agonist medications you take for the rest of your life, or does your appetite signaling become fixed after you lose weight? Um, so, yeah, the medications, essentially, kind of the way to think about it is that it, like from a biological, genetic, evolutionary perspective, every single human being on the planet is essentially a fat storage machine. Some of us are going to be better fat storage machines than others, but we are all basically designed to pack on as much fat as needed, as possible. And that goes back 30,000 years ago when we were living in caves and hunting and gathering and stuff like that. If we came across a fig tree, for example, that had a whole bunch of fresh, ripe figs on it, we didn't go, oh, I'll just take a couple of today and we'll come back tomorrow. It was no, we consume and eat as much as possible because A, they're high in calorie, they were sweet and delicious. And tomorrow, another tribe or something like that might come along and take away all the figs and they not be there anymore. So we would do our best to kind of gorge, overconsume, and that sort of thing. And so our relatives that weren't as good at the whole gorging aspect and packing on fat as needed for survival, well, they aren't our relatives in the sense that they got to pass on their genes much farther than kind of in the Stone Age there. And so those relatives that were very good at gorging and storing fat, they gave rise to us. And so we now have the genetic imprinting and coding that makes us these fat storage machines. Now, your environment and that sort of thing will also influence things. Processed foods can also influence the genetic switching on and off of these genes and that sort of thing. And so the medications help to correct the appetite physiology and pathways of regulating appetite and that sort of thing, so that it should be at a much lower and more manageable level. But they can only do that when the drug is present. When we take the drug away, unfortunately, those pathways will no longer will go back to their previous patterns, driving up your appetite, increasing your hunger, and that sort of thing. And if you've lost weight, those pathways are going to be even more enhanced and signaling at a higher rate because it's all part of your body's biology of not only being a fat storage machine, but also preventing you from losing fat too. So, taking the medication, the long of the short of it, short of the long of it, is that no, it does not fix the signaling when it comes to the GLP-1 medications. It ultimately corrects it while the drug is on board. And as soon as the drug is taken away, we see that those things, appetite and everything like that, increases back up more so to where it is, and even more so if you've lost a considerable amount of weight. So, really good question, though. Fantastic. Yeah, you guys always have great and awesome questions. Christine asks, I've been taking Zepbound 2.5 for 7 weeks. I have lost 6 pounds. I've been exercising and watching diet with protein uptake and calorie range between 1,200 to 1,400. Wish I lost more. So why? Why do you need to lose more? You're losing just under a pound a week, which is awesome and fantastic. Yeah, I guess it's kind of looking at the bigger picture of like what exactly what are we striving for? What are we trying to do here? And yeah, why are we using how many pounds per week being lost as kind of your benchmark of success? You're improving your dietary patterns, you're exercising more. Those are going to give you vastly more health benefits in the long term if you continue to sustain them versus losing a couple extra pounds will for you. And so, yeah, I guess it's kind of reevaluating what is the bigger picture, what is the bigger metric or marker of success, if you will, that we're using to know you're on the right direction with things and that sort of thing. So something to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, you're doing just fine from my perspective. Sweet. So da, da, da. Let me answer a couple more questions here. Uh, mm, mm, mm. Very interesting. Definitely curious about the paradox. Swishes. Someone asked, do you need to cycle Mounjaro? No, you definitely do not. In fact, I usually don't recommend it. Yeah, there's a lot more. The cycling of the drugs doesn't need to be done. The drugs don't stop working. They're always going to be having their effect. What you would need to look at is kind of what you're currently consuming and eating in terms of nutrients and whether you're getting enough calories and that sort of thing, enough protein in order to manage the biology. And so, yeah, you definitely don't need to cycle or change or anything like that. You just kind of can keep going on and just keep looking at dietary activity and that sort and making the tweaks and changes there. Uh, I believe I have a video coming out about that here in the near future. So someone says, what about but getting prescribed Mounjaro for weight loss, never being overweight, just type 2 diabetes and very insulin resistance? Will I lose too much weight on it? Um, so if you don't have a weight issue and you're just using it for diabetes, I mean, generally we find kind of the right dose for you that ultimately is going to work. For most people, when it comes to Mounjaro and Zepbound, 5 milligrams once a week is kind of the main main dose for managing blood sugars and stuff like that. If you went above that 5 milligram, that's more where we get into kind of losing weight with Mounjaro. So yeah, so if it's kept at 5, you're gonna get the most bang for your buck for managing diabetes. And yeah, you might lose some weight. Again, it's going to depend on all the other changes and how much of a responder you are. If you go beyond 5 milligrams, very much likely you're going to lose more weight with Mounjaro, but varies person to person. Good question nonetheless. So Mimi says, need to head off. Awesome. Thanks for answering questions. My pleasure. Happy holidays to all. Abigail, any tips for weight loss in perimenopause? It's so much harder now. So perimenopause is really interesting, or just the whole life transition there, because you're getting a fluctuation in 3 hormones. You're getting fluctuations and then eventually just a full-on decrease of progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. What we know with progesterone and estrogen, maybe not so much progesterone, but for sure estrogen, that as the levels drop off, what that causes is an increase in appetite, increase in hunger, increase in cravings, all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. As you get a decrease in testosterone, that's going to be a decrease in like your the male sex hormone. Decreasing in that is going to lead to a loss of muscle mass, and a decrease in all 3 of them is going to lead to an increase in cortisol levels. Cortisol is very good at storing fat around the midsection, and so with the loss of muscle mass and the cortisol increase, women ultimately struggle with a lot of weight gain around the abdomen area. And they might even not change in weight at all. They might just get a redistribution of fat from other parts of their body to going and hanging out in the abdomen. So when it comes to losing weight in perimenopause, very much the same principles still apply. in some cases, HRT replacement can be really fantastic and help to kind of correct some of those hormonal abnormalities and allow you to keep progressing in the direction that you're wanting to go and that sort of thing, and make it easier for that weight management piece. I think the biggest thing that kind of coincides with the perimenopause piece of things is that oftentimes women are kind of, reaching the pinnacle or peak of their career. So what we'll often see is that they're getting promotions or working in a higher level position, which involves them working more hours in general. They're doing more sitting and that sort of thing. So that further exacerbates the whole problem and kind of contributes to it. So it's always kind of looking at those various things. And so my general recommendations are definitely increasing protein intake, being mindful of what we call the non-exercise activity, and the calories that are burned there. So just trying to get more activity in that aspect of it. And then definitely hitting the gym and building some muscle mass, getting those things going, and yeah, will be big helpful components and aspects. And then all the other things are going to be like making sure you're getting enough sleep, enough water, kind of all the other health behaviors that are just going to help with your overall processes of things and kind of move you in the direction that you want to go. So kind of being mindful of all those things, and yeah, going on one of the medications certainly can help out too. Good question. Good question. By the way, is it on my website? Yes, it's on my website. It's in the Dr. Dan Empowerment Hub, which if you haven't joined, you all should. It is free access until January 6th. Come and join the community. But I do have a guide that'll be going up there about managing weight in perimenopause, menopause, very detailed. It's like 12 pages long or something like that. But goes into a lot more detail, provides a lot more resources and things like that to kind of help you out on your journey. So yeah, definitely check it out. Excellent video. Thank you. Oh, these are all such really great comments. I love them all. What do we got going on here? Okay, I think, have I pretty much answered all of them? Maybe. Looking forward, wondering if you've done videos on fasting and whether it's harmful or legitimate or good or neutral. Yes, I've done videos on that. Someone said manipulating your body processes is never good. Okay. Loss of bone. Can I take Contrave while on citalopram? So yeah, definitely. While Contrave does contain what is it? Bupropion and naltrexone. Bupropion is a norepinephrine and dopamine reuptake inhibitor, and citalopram is an SSRI, or a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So we often combine. Lots of people are on both a SSRI and a bupropion or an NDRI. There's also lots of other combinations and that sort of thing. So it certainly is possible. You kind of start it slow, make sure that things go well, and yeah, kind of slowly progress in that aspect. But you definitely could take it as well and get the benefits of Contrave. You'll just be monitoring for any kind of potential side effects, but generally they kind of act in different directions and pathways and are a non-issue. Okay, on my GIP video, GIP receptor desensitization is a thing. This gives you a way to continue with weight loss and keep it up. So the desensitization thing, I mean, we've kind of seen it in animal models. And again, I think I have a video coming out on this one, actually. Desensitization of the receptors, something we've seen in animal models, or actually, I think it was just in Petri dishes. So that doesn't actually mean that it's going to play out from a clinical in the human body perspective. And thus far, there's nothing to indicate that that is the case when we actually apply it to humans. In one of the studies, I think it was the Step 5 trial with the, it was Wegovy 2.4, and they followed them for 2 years. And they looked at kind of various measures of like cravings, appetite, hunger, all that kind of stuff. And what they found over that 2-year period is that there really was no change in cravings or anything like that. Cravings stayed about the same. They might have got a slight increase by the end of 2 years. I'm trying to think what else was there. Weight loss was stable. They maintained their weight loss. And yeah, they looked at a whole bunch of different factors just to see if that was the case. So while in a petri dish, we take a clump of cells and we see a down regulation of the receptor when we add the drug. Cool, that's one thing. But does that actually play out to what's going on inside of the body? Not usually the case. Some cases, for sure, absolutely. And that's kind of where we start with the studies to see how a drug is going to interact. But in general, it's not actually a concern when we get out into the real world and real people and that sort. And we haven't seen the desensitization. And so we don't need to cycle peptides or anything like that, or cycle the GLP-1 medications. Does because they become less effective over time. Yeah. Is it normal to get low glucose when skipping a meal? Um, yeah, yeah. Generally, that can occur for sure. It certainly can be a bit of an option, or a bit of a problem in that respect. In that you go without food, blood sugar drops, and causes some issues and problems. So certainly is. I think that's pretty much got her, guys. Oh, another person that is upset about my pronunciation. Wow, they went syllables and everything like that. Mhm. Sweet. All right. That is that, everybody. So we've been being out this for an hour and a bit. If you're just joining on, then go back and check out the beginning. We did a little talk on New Year, New You about kind of how we want to approach making changes in our lifestyle and that sort of thing. Biggest thing is changing your identity, realizing that habits, previous ones, are always going to be there, that it's easy to fall back on them, and that sort of thing. And yeah, start slow, build yourself up, and stop trying to aim for perfection. Instead, aim for consistency, because that is the most important factor out of literally everything. So we'll leave it at that for tonight. Check out all the links down below as well. If you haven't checked out my empowerment hub, you definitely need to do that as well. That is free access until January 6th, and then will be a paid community to come into and that sort of thing. So would love to have you join us. And otherwise, I'll keep doing kind of random lives here and there, and lots of great content coming for 2025. So thanks again for all the support, everybody. And I hope you all have a wonderful and happy new year. Celebrate it. I'll probably be in bed by 9, and we'll just wake up the next morning and it'll be 2025. So see you later, everybody. We will chat real soon.